Let's take you live to Morocco, and our correspondent Adam Parsons joins us live now from Marrakech. Adam, usually Marrakech, a busy, bustling city. Describe the scene to us there tonight.
Well, it is still a busy, bustling city. You see around us this kind of discordant fact that there are still a lot of people around. The streets are still busy. There are still tourists here. But then look at that. That was a restaurant, relatively new, very popular restaurant, was massively damaged during the earthquake. And then this morning at about breakfast time, the ground floor simply collapsed. And this city is, of course, pockmarked now with buildings that have come down as a result of this 6.8 magnitude earthquake. Now, it is worth saying straight away that we're, 45, 50 miles or so away from the epicenter of this earthquake up in the Atlas Mountains. That area is pretty remote, very hard to get to. So there's a multi-layer challenge here for the Moroccan authorities. Getting to those people is very, very hard. But the tremors hit this huge city extensively, bringing down buildings, clearly causing casualties. And this is a city that attracts tourists from around the world to its Medina, for instance, a very famous, culturally significant old heart of Marrakech. And you've seen the images of how that has been damaged, of how historic buildings have been flattened. Of course, much of this is a UNESCO heritage site. You can't do remedial work to some of these old buildings to make them earthquake proof. But this, the biggest earthquake to have hit Morocco for many, many years. And I'm afraid the grim reality is that number of deaths has gone from just under 300 to 600 to 800, has now gone through 1,000. And I don't think there's anybody who thinks it's going to stop there now, because as they reach those remote towns and villages, I'm afraid there is a grim inevitability that the flimsier buildings that are up there will have simply collapsed and claimed, I'm sure, many more lives.
Yes, Adam, that steady death toll rising through the day has been pretty shocking. But as you say, it's getting out to those remote areas. There is obviously in times like this and disasters like this, that turn when it goes from a rescue operation to recovery and rebuilding. Right now, are they still trying to get to those areas farther afield for those rescue efforts?
Yes, they are. In fact, we've just been up at the airport here in Marrakech. Interestingly, a quite modern building which survived very well from these tremors. And what you could see up there were military planes who had been sent up towards the mountains areas, had found somewhere to land, and that survivors had been ferried down to those planes and brought to Marrakech. So I saw one with a group of people next to it, also a large military helicopter, looked like it was about to take off. So they're trying to get people from there. This is still, at the moment, it is a rescue operation, and there are nations, including the UK and France, who are already sending rescue personnel to Morocco. When we flew out from the Netherlands, there were search and rescue people on standby at the airport in Amsterdam, ready to fly out here. So we know the process that will happen. They will come to buildings. Then when they reach them, they will have those periods of silence when they're listening for signs of life. We're still at that early point where there is still hope, there is still optimism that people can be reached. It is going to be hard, though, because we know that these towns and villages that are up in the mountains are difficult to get to at the best of times, and the roads clearly have been damaged. That is going to be a huge logistical challenge for the authorities here in Morocco, and at the moment they're also coping with this burden, with this grief. They've announced 3 days of national mourning, clearly having huge effects on society. A big football match has been cancelled. People are queuing up, including tourists here in Marrakech, are queuing up to donate blood. Hospitals having to cope with this huge influx of casualties. And I have to say, dotted all around this city are people who are sleeping rough, not necessarily because their homes have been destroyed, I should say, but actually because they may have been damaged, and they are now fearful of staying in these taller apartment blocks, nervous that there could be aftershocks, more tremors, and that they will be in danger if these buildings collapse again. And that restaurant behind me, I guess, is a good example of how the fact that buildings don't necessarily come down straight away, but can collapse hours later.
Adam, thanks very much indeed.